Now we will talk about teeth, right, and the structure of tooth. You know that teeth are inside the oral cavity, right, and they are accessory organs. What do we mean when we say accessory organs? That these teeth, right, these help in digestion, right? We know that with the help of teeth, when we eat food, we break bigger food particles into smaller ones, right? So what they are basically doing is they are helping us in digestion, right? Because digestion is basically breaking down bigger food particles into smaller, simpler molecules, right? So basically, our mechanical digestion starts inside the mouth with the help of teeth, right? Now let's look into the structure and the different types of teeth that we have inside the mouth, right? And before we start, we know that in our lifetime, humans have two sets of teeth, right? One we call it as a deciduous teeth, right? Which we also call as milk teeth or temporary teeth or baby teeth, right? Right? We know we call it by different names. And the second set of teeth, right, which replaces these deciduous teeth, is your permanent teeth, right? So we have deciduous teeth. Decidu means fall out, right? So these temporary teeth or the milk teeth, they fall out, right, and they start erupting in kids at the age of 6 months, right? And it'll continue till around 6 years of age, right? Now, from 6 years of age, these temporary teeth or the milk teeth start falling out, right? And they are replaced by a permanent teeth, like permanent set of teeth till the age of till adulthood, till 17 to 21 years of age, you get a complete set of 32 teeth, right? So you see the diagram that you see here is this the smaller jaw that you see. This is a set of deciduous teeth, right? Milk teeth, right? Which consist of 20 teeth, right? 10 in the upper jaw, 10 in the lower jaw, right? And the other is the bigger jaw that you see. This is in adults, like we have this 32 set of teeth. So this is a set of permanent teeth, right? This is a set of permanent teeth, and it has 16 teeth in the upper jaw, 16 teeth in the lower jaw, right? Now let's look more into it. Okay, the first thing that we should know about certain things about the tooth is that these teeth are embedded into the socket, right? Embedded into the socket, and these sockets are present on the jawbone, right? We call it as ecodont. Ecodont. Just remember these terms. Like don't means teeth, right? So you will see this word many places in dentistry. Don't means teeth, right? And to teeth we also call it as dentists, right? And the two set of teeth are also known as dentitions. So we call it like we have two set of teeth or dentitions. Right? Stecodont means that our tooth or our teeth is embedded or anchored in the socket, right? And the socket is present on the jawbone, right? And this jawbone we call it as maxilla and mandible, right? The upper jawbone is maxilla, the lower one is mandible, right? And we have the teeth are of different types based on their shapes. Basically, they all have same structures, which we'll discuss in a moment, but they have different shapes and functions. Functions, when we talk about functions of teeth, we are talking about in connection with eating food, right? That is mastication, chewing of food, right? So it's when we say we have different types of teeth, different shapes and functions of teeth, we call it as heterodont, right? So we have a word heterodont, right, which means different shapes of teeth and their functions, right? And we have two sets of teeth, right, or dentitions. Two sets of teeth or two dentitions, we call it as diphodont, right? We call it as diphodont. I hope the spelling is right. Diphodont. That means two set of teeth, right? Two sets of teeth. Heterodonts means different teeth and their functions. Different shape based on their shapes. They are different based on their shapes, right? Ecodont means teeth are embedded in the socket. Now let's quickly look at the different types of teeth, right, that we have. We will discuss the teeth starting from the middle of the jaw, right, going posteriorly inside the mouth, right, backwards in this direction, in this direction. In this direction we'll move, right? So the first set of teeth that you see, and this deciduous teeth has 20 teeth, right? So at the age of 6, these deciduous teeth will start erupting and they will continue till you have 20 teeth, right? And these permanent teeth consist of 32 teeth, and they will start erupting from 6 years of age till your adulthood, right? Now, if you look at the center, right, at the center, you have these two teeth, right? This one and this one, right? These are we call these teeth based on their shape as incisors, right? So these are incisors, right? They are chisel shaped. You know, chisel is a tool that is used to cut edges, right? So that is why the shape of the incisors, that is the front teeth, one in the middle and the other is little side lateral, right? So this is your these teeth are your incisors, right? And their shape is chisel shaped, right? And chisel is what? Chisel is a tool that is used to cut edges, right? So the function of this tooth basically is to uh, it basically pierce into the food, right? It cuts into the food basically, right? That's basically the function of these incisors, right? And we have total of 2 incisors, right? And they have sharp. It's incisors are chisel shaped. We have already discussed, and they are used to cut into the food, right? So their function is while eating that basically they will cut into the food. Then comes as you keep moving posteriorly inside, then this is the tooth, right? Which we call as canine, right? These are canine tooths, and the shape of the tooth is dagger shaped, right? They have pointed ends, right? This tooth have pointed surface or pointed end, right? Which is used to tear and shred food. Their shape is dagger shaped and their function is they are used to tear and shred food. Then comes as you keep moving posteriorly or backwards, then you have these 2 set of teeth, which are these are molars, right? First molar, this is the first molar, then this is the second molar, right? And you can see in the diagram only, you have the 6 to 8 months, that is the first incisor erupts at the age of 6 to 8 months. When the child is 6 to 8 months, he get the first incisors. Then when he is 12 to 15 months old, then he gets a second incisor, right? And the incisor is the central incisor. You can see it's central incisor and lateral incisor based on its position. If the incisor which is at the center of the jaw is or which is near the center of the jaw is your central incisor, and which is little side, right? The next one is your lateral incisor, right? And these molars, the first molar and the second molar, these are basically um, these are broad, strong teeth which are used to crush the food, right? You might have noticed when you eat the food, right? You tear the food or you cut into the food with the help of your front teeth, right? Then with the help of side teeth, you further tear it, right? Then with the help of back teeth that are inside the mouth, which are molars, you what you do is chew the food. That is, you are basically crushing the food before swallowing it. Before swallowing the food, you crush the food, right, with the help of molars. So these molars basically they help you to crush the food. They are strong crushing teeth, right? So here now we have, let me just write it down, incisors. You have two incisors, you have canines, you have one canine, right? Then you have two molars, right? This is your, basically this is your deciduous teeth, right? These are your deciduous, it's here, it's written over here. These are your deciduous or primary dentition, right? Now let's look into the permanent set of teeth, right? Which replaces these deciduous teeth. Here is your permanent set of teeth. The order of incisors, canine, molars, premolars is, I'm sorry, molars is same. The only difference is that these molars, right, the molars that are in deciduous teeth are replaced by, they are replaced by these first and second premolar, like these first and second premolar, right? So I'll repeat, the first and second molar is replaced by first and second premolar in the permanent set of teeth, right? And since this is a bigger jaw, right? So as you grow, your body organs also grow. So this is a bigger jaw, right, in which you have more teeth. You have 32 teeth here, so you have extra 12 teeth, right? We'll just see what are these extra 12 teeth, right? So till this point, you have premolars, right? Premolars which are before molars. And as you keep moving posteriorly inside or backwards, you have molars, first molar, second molar, third molar, right? The first molar you get at the age of 11 to 12, second molar, I'm sorry, the first molar you get at the age of 6 to 7 when you start getting teeth erupting, when teeth, permanent teeth will start getting erupting inside your mouth. Then the second one you get at the age of 11 to 13. Then the third molar you get at the age of 17 to 21, right? And we call it as wisdom tooth. Most of us are aware of about this name, the wisdom tooth, right? And one important thing is that these three set of teeth, right? These teeth haven't replaced any teeth. If you look at the incisors, right? These two, the central and lateral incisors, have replaced the permanent, the deciduous central and lateral incisor, right? And this canine has replaced this deciduous canine. So, right, and these two premolars, right, have replaced two molars, two deciduous molars, right? And these three molars in the permanent set of teeth have not replaced any deciduous teeth, but they are new set of teeth which has grown in the space, right, in the extra space that you have now in your jaw, right? When you grow up, your jaws, all as like I said, your jaw will also grow up, right? So till this point, I hope things are clear, right? So the permanent molars which erupt into the mouth posterior, right, posterior to the bicuspid. And one important thing is these molars are known as bicuspids, right? And these teeth may have 1, 2, or 3 roots, right? We'll discuss that in a moment, right? So the first and the second premolar, they have two cusps, right, and one root. Remember, the first and second, the first and second molars, they have two cusps. Cusp is a pointed end where two curves meet, right? So these are pointed. They have cuspid shapes. Cusps. They have the shape. Due to the shape, they are known as cusps. They are known as cuspids, bicuspids, right? They have two cusps, so they are bicuspids, right? And they have one root. and they have one root, right? And these are used for crushing and grinding, like I said. These are used for crushing and grinding. Right? Then you have three permanent molars which erupt into the mouth posterior to the bicuspid. These are bicuspids. Posterior to the bicuspid are these three molars, right? And the first molar, like I said, we have already discussed the age when we get these molars. And there's little that we need to talk about the third molar, right? The third molar is the last tooth that we have, right? And we call it a wisdom tooth. And you might have heard when this wisdom tooth starts erupting, you get a lot of pain. Sometimes the pain reaches to the extent that you need to surgically remove this tooth, right? Now, why this happens is because of the lesser space, right? Because of the lesser space posterior to these molars, posterior to the second molar, you have less space there. That is why you feel pain and pressure, and sometimes you have to remove this tooth, the wisdom tooth, surgically, right? So it has, I'll just write it over here, it has less space, right, posterior to the second molar, right? So sometimes you need to remove it, and in some individuals this wisdom tooth is dwarfed, right? Is dwarfed, that is, it is short, and in some humans it's not grown, right? So you don't feel it, it's not completely grown, it's inside the roots, right? So in some like I said, in some humans these are dwarfed in size and may not develop at all, right? In some humans it's a dwarf, let me just write it over here, or may not grow, or may not grow at all, right? So I hope this is clear, the shapes of teeth and the functions, right, with respect to mastication, that is chewing of food, right? And what there is something known as dental formula that we should know about. Dental formula. Dental formula. It is, the dental formula is your 2123 upon 2123, right? This is your dental formula. 2123 divided by 2123. Now what these numbers are? And one thing, if you divide your mouth in, let's do it over here. If you divide it in four parts, right? If you divide your mouth in four sections, right? Each section, this is one section, this is second, third, fourth, right? So here you have, if you count, you have 8 teeth in each of the sections, right? 8 teeth in each of the sections. You have 2 incisors. You can see you have 2 incisors, 1 canine, 3. Then you have 2 molars, 5. Then you have 2 premolars, I'm sorry, 5. Then you have 3 molars, 8. So right, so in each section you have 8 tooth, right? So this is something this is what the dental formula talks about, right? 2 represents 2 incisors, 1 canine, 2 molars, right? 2 molars, and then 2 molars and 3 premolars, right? The upper numbers signifies the tooth in the upper section, in this section, in either of these 2 sections, right, of the 4 sections, and the lower section represents the number of teeth in the lower section, in any one of the lower section, right? So this is your dental formula, right? And I hope this is clear to you, this dental formula. These numbers represents the number of different types of teeth, right? Like I said, here you have two incisors, right? And I'm sorry, yeah, you have two incisors, you have one canine, you have two premolars, and then you have three molars, right? This is what the dental formula show, above and below of the jaws, right? Now I hope everything is clear to you, right, with respect to teeth, their shape, right? Basically, you have to look into the shape, right, their function, right, their numbers, right? Now let's quickly look into the structure of tooth. How does the tooth looks like, right? This is how a tooth looks like, right? So let me just clear this off first. This is how a typical tooth, this is a typical tooth and the surrounding structures, right? Inside the socket, inside the jaw. So let's quickly now look into the structure of a typical tooth, right? So like we discussed in the previous section that we have different teeth, right? Different set of teeth like incisors, canines, molars, premolars, they have different shapes, right? But their structure is same, right? Their structure is same for all the teeth. Let's look into how does a teeth fits into the socket, right? And the structure of its surroundings, right? And how does it look like? Let's quickly talk about it. If you see this tooth, right, this diagram, you have three major sections of a tooth, right? First is the crown, which is the visible part of the teeth above gum, right? The second is neck, which is the junction of the crown and the root, right? Root is embedded in the socket, right? And socket we know is present on the jawbone, right? Maxilla and mandible. So this is important, right? So this is your crown, this is your neck, this is your root, right? And we know that tooth is anchored inside the socket, right? Inside the socket, the tooth is anchored, right? And it consists of an upper part, which is your crown, right? Then you have neck, then the part which is the lower part, right, which is inside the socket is your root, right? And the the most part of the tooth, right? Most part of the tooth, it's dentin, right? Dentin, which forms the most part of the tooth. It's the majority of the tooth is your dentin, right here. It is dentin. This makes the majority of the tooth, right? You can see it's from above. It's going in the root, right? Like this. It's everywhere, right? So maximum part of the tooth is dentin. And what is dentin? Dentin is a bone-like thing, right? Which consists of calcified connective tissue, right? And it is hard. It's a hard thing like bone, right? Because and it is harder than bone. To be honest, it is harder than bone. And why it is harder than bone? Because of its of higher calcium salt content, right? It contains calcium salts, right? And due to its higher content of calcium salt, right, which is around 70% dry weight, it is harder than bone, because bone is also, we know, it's made up of calcium salts, right? And it's hard due to the presence of calcium salts. And this dentin is harder than bone because it contains, it's, let me just write it over here, it's harder than bone, right? Because of its higher calcium salts content. right? And the dentin of the crown, right? If you see this much dentin, this much dentin is in crown, right? And this part of the dentin is covered with enamel. This is your enamel, right? Which is again bone-like structure, but it is harder than bone. And this is primarily consist of your calcium phosphate and calcium carbonate, right? So this consists of calcium phosphate, right? And you have calcium carbonate, right? You have calcium phosphate and calcium carbonate in enamel, right? And the main function of enamel is that it protects the tooth from wear and tear while chewing. When you chew the food, there may be wear and tear, right, on in your teeth, right? So this enamel, which is the hardest substance, and enamel is the hardest substance in our body, right? Due to the content of and due the calcium salts, right? Due to calcium phosphate, calcium carbonate, this is the hardest substance known in the body, and its main function is that it protects the tooth from the wear and tear while chewing, right? And then you have this we have not discussed about the function of dentin. The main function of dentin, the main function of dentin is that it gives shape and rigidity to the teeth. It gives the shape and rigidity to the teeth, right? And enamel also prevents dentin from the acid attack, right? It also it it basically it prevents dentin, right, from getting dissolved in acids that may be present in your food, from getting dissolved acids, right? Then you have this dentin, as I said, this makes the majority of the tooth, right? And the dentin of the root is covered by cementum, like the dentin which is above, right, which is above the root, right, is covered by enamel. Similarly, dentin of the root here, this is covered with cementum, right? Cementum again, it's a bone-like structure, right? It's a bone-like substance, right, that attaches root to the periodontal ligament. And periodontal ligament is something that lines the socket in which the tooth is embedded, right? So your cementum is a bone-like substance that attaches the root, right? The root in which the tooth is embedded to the periodontal ligament, right? It attaches root, right? Just understand this is the cementum, right here. This is your cementum. This lining that you see here, this is your cementum. And what it does is it attaches the root, right, to the periodontal ligament. This is your periodontal ligament, right? And it attaches the root, right, this tooth with the periodontal ligament. Here is the periodontal ligament, this is the tooth, here you have cementum. So this is between, and this attaches the root to the periodontal ligament, right? And the dentin of the tooth, if you look at the dentin, right, here is the dentin. Inside the dentin, you have a space, right? So the dentin of the tooth encloses I'm talking about this space. So the dentin of the tooth encloses a space, right, which we call as pulp cavity. See it over here. This is your pulp cavity that contains pulp. And what is inside the pulp? What is in the pulp? Pulp consists of tissues, nerves, and blood vessels, right? And it is due to the nerves that is present in the pulp that you feel sensations, right? Sometimes you have sensitivity in your tooth, right? And sometimes it also happens that you need to undergo a root canal surgery, right? Because of the sensitivity when you eat something hot or cold, right? So it is due to the nerves, right? Nerves that are infected in the pulp cavity, right? And what infects these nerves? It's the bacteria, right? So what doctor will do is doctor will drill a hole, right? Doctor will drill a hole here, and he will just remove everything from the pulp cavity, right? All the blood vessels, all the tissues, right? All the damaged or the infected tissues or the nerves would be removed, and your tooth is more or less it's dead, right? So, and doctor will also put some medicine inside the pulp so as to remove the bacteria, right? Sorry. So as to remove the bacteria, or he'll put a medication inside the tooth, right? So it's a little about and the root canal therapy that you should know when we talk about the pulp cavity, because this is majorly it happens in the pulp. The medicine and everything that doctor is doing is inside the pulp, right? And he's removing the tissues, blood vessels, and nerves, right, from the pulp, which are infected due to the bacteria, right? So first doctor will test for the infection, if it's infected or not. Then only he'll undergo this. He'll ask you to undergo this therapy, right? Root canal therapy, right? Then comes the dentin, which has pulp cavity. We have discussed, right? Then you have, if you look at this pulp cavity, right, you see there are some narrow extensions, right? These are narrow extensions, right, which are going further inside the root, right? These narrow extensions of the pulp cavity, these are known as root canal, right, which is an extension of the pulp cavity that contains nerves, blood vessels, right? These extensions contains nerves and blood vessels, and it runs through the root of the tooth, right? You can see it's running through the root of the tooth. You can look at the structure. It runs through the root of the tooth, right? Each root canal has an opening at the base, right? If you continue, if you look at the base, right here at the base, you have an opening. You can see there's an opening. So each root canal, this is your root canal, right? This root canal has an opening at the base, right? This opening is termed as apical foramen, right? You can see it over here. It is known as apical foramen. Let me just rub it off. Right now you can see it clearly. This is known as apical foramen, right? Is an opening at the base of root canal, right? This is an opening. This is the root canal. I'll again repeat. This is the root canal, right? If you these are narrow extensions of the pulp cavity, right? You can see this is narrow, right? This is the pulp cavity, right? It continues this is a narrow way, right? You can see this is a narrow way. It continues inside the root, right? And it continues, and here at the base there is an opening of this root canal, right? This is a root canal. It has an opening at the base. This opening is known as apical foramen, right? And through this opening, the blood vessels, the lymphatic vessels, and the nerves, right, enters the tooth, right? So nerves, blood supply, and lymphatic vessels, everything enters through this lymphatic foramen that makes up the pulp cavity, right? I hope this tooth structure of tooth is clear to you, right? This is quite important, right, for you to understand, right? Because unless you understand this, root canal therapy would not be clear to you, right? So I'll just quickly repeat what we have learned, right, in this structure of tooth. And one thing, some tooths, the tooths that we have in our jaw, it may have one, two, or three uh, roots, right? So if we talk about tooth, what we have all discussed about tooth is this is the tooth, right? The upper visible part that you can see is your crown. This is your neck. Then the one which is below in the root, in the socket, is your root, right? And the most part of the tooth is made up of dentin, and this dentin is covered with enamel, right? Which is harder than bone. It is the hardest substance due to calcium salts, right? And it prevents the wear and tear of tooth, and it prevents the dentin from getting dissolved in acids, right, in the mouth. And then you have there's a space enclosed by this dentin, which is your pulp cavity. And in this pulp cavity, you have nerves, you have lymphatic vessels, and you have blood vessels, lymphatic vessels, and nerves, right? And these nerves gives you sensation, right? And the pulp cavity is has a narrow continuation, right? This pulp cavity has it has these narrow extensions which we call as root canals, right? And these root canals, which are narrow extensions of the pulp cavity, has an opening at the base, which is your apical foramen. And it is through this opening, which is apical foramen, that lymphatic vessels, nerves, and your blood vessels enter, right, into the tooth, and that makes up the pulp cavity, right? I hope this is clear to you. Thanks.